So let's take a quick look at the actual controls and we'll see what they do. The first control that we'll take a look at is the eye control or the eye target control just here, which is this little yellow locator in front of the face. So you can see that just there. So if we take a look in the channel box just here, okay, we've got three numbers. We've got translate X, translate Y, and translate Z. Okay, and by default they should be all of them should be set to 0. Now the translate Z is grayed out. This has been locked, and the reason for that is that we don't want to move this target either closer to or further away from the character. Okay, we want it to remain basically this far away, and that's not for any other reason other than we don't want you to accidentally move this sort of off into the distance somewhere or end up sticking it inside his head. If we did that, the character's eyes basically would turn inside out. He'd go cross-eyed, and then his eyes would roll around into the back of his head. So we need to keep that target in front of his face. The way that this control works is really simple. What we do is grab the move tool, and we just drag the move handle around. And you can see there when we move it around, his eyes will follow that control. Now if we want to, let's say we kind of accidentally bring his eyes up like this, and we need to get those eyes back into the default position again, all we do is open the channel box and type in 0 for these numbers. And hit enter like that. And that just repositions the controller back to the middle of his face, like that. Okay, so that's the eye control. So basically what we can do is animate this object to move around, okay, using keyframes on the timeline at the bottom of the viewport here. Okay, so the next control is the control that's on top of his head, just up here. Okay, now this one's a little bit more complex to a certain extent. You'll see over here in the channel box, this is the head control, and the settings that we've got predominantly for the head control are the rotate values just here, and we've also got a squatch value as well. The squatch value is a squash and stretch, which allows us to kind of squash him down or stretch him up. But I'll just kind of cover that in a second. The main one that you're going to be using for this particular control is the rotate. Now, simply put, if you select the rotate tool and you select that handle, you can use the rotate tool to make him turn his head like this. Now obviously I'm just kind of clicking somewhere in the empty spot inside the handle to freely rotate in multiple directions at once. But if you want to just make him turn in one direction, you need to grab one of these handles. So I can make him go side to side, I can make him look down or up, or I can make him kind of tilt his head to the side, like that. So you just keep in mind, if you're going to be using the rotate tool, if you want a specific direction of rotation, you need to grab the handle like this. But if you just want to kind of freely position him, you can kind of just click and drag in inside the area, like that. Once again, just like with the eye target, you can reset his head position by typing zeros into all these rotate values, like that. You'll also notice that when you move the head around, the eye target control follows it. So for example, you know, we could position his head like that, and then grab the eye target and move the eye target into position, you know, like that kind of thing, which kind of looks a bit creepy, but you can do it. Okay, so we'll just reset those. Now you'll notice that we've got still the scale and translate channels visible. Okay, they haven't been hidden, but they are locked, so you can't do anything to them. Now it's important with this particular control that you don't unlock these and play around with them. The reason for that is if you unlock the translates and you move this controller, the head will probably snap off. The head joint will basically come away from the rest of the rig, and basically what will end up happening is the top half of his head, probably from the upper lip upwards, will move away, but the rest of it will kind of stay where it is, and you'll get this weird kind of stretching occurring. So it's important that you don't mess around with that. And likewise with the scale has actually been linked to this squatch value, or squash and stretch. So it's important that you don't change that, because it could break this control. So this squatch control, okay, as I just mentioned, it's squash and stretch. And the best way of doing, or the best way of implementing this control is to just highlight the squatch label here, and then use your middle mouse button and just drag it left or right. So if you drag to the left, it will squash the character, and if you drag to the right, it will stretch the character like that. So you can kind of get some weird and interesting effects. This value is actually best used at very, very low numbers. You probably wouldn't want to stretch past about that value there, about 3, okay, because he starts to look a bit weird. Likewise, you probably wouldn't want to compress him past probably 2, -2, possibly -3, okay. You can push it further, obviously down to -10, and he just starts looking really weird. At that position, he actually looks like a piece of video footage that's been had its aspect ratio changed. So, you know, be aware that you can kind of push the extremities and make it look really weird, but you probably don't want to go to the maximum values with squatch. Once again, you can just type in 0 to reset it. Okay. Now, down here we've got inputs, and we've got this rig controls label. That's actually the layer that this object is in, this curve is in. Okay, so just bear that in mind. So you can see here we've got rig controls. So this particular input is actually the object's connection to this layer. So if you click on that, there aren't any settings in there. For those of you that may be kind of trying to find settings, there aren't any settings under those. They're just names for the layers. Okay, so let's take a look at how we actually can get this character to move his face around. The first thing we'll want to do is come up to our status menu up here, and we want to set this to animation. And that's because we're going to be animating. We're not going to be modeling or doing anything with polygon tools. We'll be animating for this, so we set this to animation. Now, if we come up to Windows, or the window menu I should say, we can then come down to animation editors and select blend shape just here. And that will pop up this blend shape panel. Now, unfortunately, Maya's blend shape control panel, which you see here, is actually one of the worst design panels I've come across in many different 3D software packages. It's really just poorly laid out. You can see here it just goes on and on and on, all the way down like this. And yeah, it's still got this massive amount of space over here which isn't being used. So it's really not that great. We can kind of adjust it a little bit to make it a little easier to deal with. However, it's not going to be the best system to use as far as the interface for it goes. You'll find that generally speaking, studios that are using blend shapes for anything will tend to customize and actually build their own interface for this rather than using this system, because it's really badly designed. It's sort of just a bare bones, it works but it's not great to use kind of system. So let's adjust this a little bit. So we'll go to options, and we've only got one option, and we've got two choices for it. We've got vertical and we've got horizontal, and what we want to do is select horizontal, and it will move the sliders into a horizontal format like this, so we actually get more sliders visible at any given time. Now obviously you can adjust the height of this panel to get more or less sliders in, and you can expand them up and down like this, so you can kind of get to more of them at once, but usually you just want to keep them kind of all open. So the main value, or the main bits you want to adjust here, are the sliders and the key button. The key button will create a keyframe for that blend shape, and the slider dials the blend shape up and down. So let's take a quick look at what some of these blend shapes do. Now, don't forget that these blend shapes are being driven by those duplicated heads that we had a quick look at in the last video. So if anything happens to those heads, potentially this system will break. Let's just turn off that move tool there for a second. Let's take a look at how this works. So the first blend shape that we've got is called ears down. And as the name would suggest, what this is going to do is make the ears move down. So if we grab this handle, we can dial this over to the right. When we push it all the way to the right, you can see that the ears move down. So if you dial it back and forth and you watch the ears, you can see them moving. The next one's ears up, so as the name would suggest, the ears will move up a little bit. We then have eyebrow up, left, so that should make the left eyebrow move up. So if we dial this, you can see there that the left eyebrow moves up, like that. Then we've got the right eyebrow moving up, so it's the same on the other side. Now, what we can do is blend these, so I can push the right eyebrow up, and I can also push the left eyebrow up, like that. Okay, so we can make all sorts of different facial expressions by blending all of these sliders. So even though, you know, for example, let's say we've got 10 different sliders, we might be able to get 100 different facial expressions by blending different combinations of the 10 sliders together. That's not exactly the case as far as the number of blend shapes we've got for this, but you know, as a hypothetical example, that's sort of how it works. So we've got things like, you know, wink left, so we can make him kind of wink like that, and you know, obviously wink right. We've got mouth frown, so we can kind of make him look a bit angry or unhappy. We've got a smile, which does the opposite, bit of a cheesy grin. And then we get down into the sections called visemes. Now this is sort of the core theory behind your lip sync animation. In this model, we've basically got 4 visemes. Now there's actually more than 4 visemes that are used for sort of more full-on animation. Okay, there's actually, I think, a list of about 17 identifiable visemes. What a lot of animators do is actually break them down into a smaller group of 12, because a lot of them are so similar that really you can't tell the difference. So let's explain what a viseme is before we go any further into this. So we've got visemes and we've got phonemes. Now, quite often people confuse the two, and oftentimes what they'll do is actually refer to visemes as phonemes. So I tend to find it easier to understand what a viseme is by explaining what a phoneme is first. A phoneme is the sound you hear for any particular letter or groups of letters. So for example, the letter M would make the phoneme M. Okay, the letter F would make the phoneme F, and so on. Some of you may remember back to very, very early days at primary school, where you were learning things like the alphabet, and you would sometimes kind of make the sounds that the letters would make. Okay, so those are phonemes. Phonemes are the sounds you hear for particular letters when they're being spoken. A viseme is the visual facial expression for those sounds. Okay, so let's have a look at how that works with this. So for example, one of the easy ones is this F and V, right? So we've got viseme F and V. So these are the letters or the sounds for this particular viseme. So when you are saying a word with that begins with F, your face will do this. Your bottom lip will kind of tuck behind your teeth, your upper teeth. Okay, and your upper teeth kind of stick out. All right. So that's the word, or that's the viseme you will see on someone that's saying the word face, for example. That's the first viseme you would see them make. Okay, so any sound, any word that begins with the letter F, where the person is saying f, that's what you would see them do. Now, it's also the same for words beginning with V. Okay, they're a very, very, very similar shape. Okay, facial shape. Even though they're different sounds, they kind of have a similar facial shape. So usually what you do is set your viseme up so that it creates the same shape for both, or use one viseme for both shape. Okay, so with the word, or sorry, the sound for the letter M would look, it looks kind of like this, where the mouth kind of purses or presses together. And it's also the same for the letter B. So we've got a viseme here for M and also for B. Okay. All right. We've got a viseme here for the letter O. So if you were saying something like book, you would have sort of that shape in the middle of the word, book or look. But also if you wanted to do sort of like an ooh sound, okay, just like ooh. All right. And then up here what we've got is sort of A, E and U. Okay. So this would be A, like the letter A, as if you were saying ah. Okay, like that. But also you get a similar shape, similar but not exactly the same, for anything with the sound E in it. Like if I was talking about a bird's beak and I was going to say beak, you'd get this shape, E, in the middle of the word. Now you might blend that to kind of push it a little bit more with perhaps the smile shape. So if we have a look for the smile, okay, and we push that, that kind of gives you an E shape for the face. Like that. Okay. So let's have a quick look at some phonemes, okay? Or not phonemes, I should say. These are visemes, okay? As I just explained, the viseme is the visual shape that the mouth makes or the face makes. So I've just grabbed this chart off the internet, okay? I did a quick search for visemes and I got this chart. And as I was saying, a lot of people confuse the two categories, visemes and phonemes, and this particular picture is a good case in point. This is showing visemes, but it's actually been labeled phonemes. So you can see all the different shapes that the face makes when you're speaking different words or making different sounds. Okay, now because we're going for sort of a very basic, very cartoony style character, we don't really need to worry about having all of those within our system. But if you were doing something like a very realistic or like a photorealistic character for a film or for a computer game or a TV commercial, you would probably want to include the vast majority of those phonemes within your rig, whether or not you're using the blend shape system or not. You can implement your phonemes or your visemes with any other rigging system for the face. Okay, so we're going to leave this video here, and what we're going to do in the next video is actually start to animate, and before we start animating we have to load our audio in. So we'll begin with the audio importing and carry on with the animation.